everybody. Welcome to WikiTree Bingo. I know you've got our math and our music going on.
That's right. Yeah, I'm playing my air Hawaiian guitar ukulele.
And you guys caught me looking at the chat. We've got a lot of people in the chat. So thank you guys for joining us live. If you're joining us live, we appreciate you being here. The bingo card is at the top. I'll also post it again in just a moment, as well as a link to Mr. Clarke's apps. When I say apps, I mean apps. So welcome, Greg. Welcome to Bingo.
Thank you very much. Glad to be back.
How many apps do you have that work with WikiTree?
Oh my goodness. I actually haven't counted them recently. I could quickly look and count them, but
I tell you what, let's post the link one more time here, and somebody let us know. Somebody count and let us know. But I could tell you, I use his apps, and some of them are old school. I use your Ancestry citation app. I think.
Oh yes.
Maybe 5 years ago. You know, I was like, this is fantastic, because this was way before Sorcerer or B or anything like that you've come up with.
Yeah, that is old school. Yeah.
So it was
looks
really,
like 18. Looks like I've got 18 listed there. Holy moly. Oh, and you know what? I haven't even added the most recent tree app to it.
Oh.
So I have to add that one now too.
Definitely. So after bingo, make sure.
Yeah, not now. I'm not going to do it now. I got into that problem the last time. Remember, I was adding a new app to this page, and then someone pointed out the links were going to the wrong. We're going back to the fan chart instead of.
But it was great still, because we got to see that you were constantly working. And for those of you that have used the fan chart, maybe in the past, maybe a while ago, and Greg was with us about a month ago and showed us just a brief part of the fan chart. It has grown. It was a little tiny child, and now it's an adult. It's grown so much, and it's really great. So how do you want to start, Greg? You want to give us an update?
Sure. Yeah. Let's. How about I do it. I'll do the update for the fan chart. We'll start with that.
Okay.
So let me share my screen. Of course, I should have had that prepared. There we go. Present. Share screen. And we will do the entire screen. Okay, so if we do that, you should now see my screen. Okay, so
I should also point out too that this is a very, very pretty screen, but it's amazing. And I know Greg's going to show us, but it is amazing. You've given us so many options. Usually when we go to look at a fan chart at other places, it is normally kind of black or white or grayish, too, as well. But you've thrown so many options to customize, including the colors, including the layout, including the way the pictures. Do you want pictures? Do you not? You see the little white boxes on the lines? That's marriage information. So I just want to point that out. As Greg is going to go through the updates, keep in mind, this is fully customizable. So take it away, Greg.
Okay, super. Well, thank you. And you mentioned the marriage dates, and that was one of the things I was working on the last time, but it wasn't ready for the public yet. And actually, Sandy, thank you, because you were the first one to see it besides myself.
I did.
And you gave me some feedback, because this is the default view. So the marriage happens in between the husband and wife, and basically at the same level as their name, right? And I have it separated in white, little red borders, like Valentine's red heart colors, to border. So that was how I was thinking, it should look. But you suggested, first of all, that, if you have really long names or dates and places, then this sort of overlaps that. And it'd be nice if it was up out of the way. And the other thing is, you thought, well, wouldn't it be nice if it sort of blended instead of just sort of being jumped out in your face? So I did actually make both of those changes or options. So if you go under dates and under show the marriage date, if you turn it off completely, then it disappears. So just like all the settings in here, you make the change and then you have to hit save changes. So you can change a bunch of things or toggle a bunch of things on and off and then hit save changes, and it will just redraw. So I'm going to show the marriage date, and then if I hit blend, then it's going to stay in the same position, but sort of blend in. So it's the same color as the background. Now, if you're doing some type of coloring where the the bride and the groom have different colors, it uses the groom's color just because I had to pick one. So I just picked the left. I'm just left to right. This how was my rationale. But if you want to slide it up, then there you go. And it's up and out of the way. So that's just one of the new features and some of the options that are available there.
I love that option though, because sometimes I've used this fan so much. I've used it when it was in its infancy, and then continue to use it, especially as you were kind of doing updates behind the scenes. I was thankful to kind of test it out. But I actually found using the fan that somebody had wrong people connected because of the marriage date. The marriage date was really out of whack compared to the birth dates.
Mm-hmm.
And by using the fan and the marriage date, just playing around with it, I thought that was cool. So you think that the fan is kind of just, oh, this is pretty, this is nice, let me look at it. But it's also really good for double checking facts in a visual way. If you're a visual person, this is a really great way to double check things and look at things as opposed to just the text sometimes on a profile.
Exactly.
So thank you, Greg.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah. And I've had another comment in the GGG post was that by having the marriages there and by having them on by default, it was obvious that there were couples of his ancestors that didn't have marriages, and he thought for sure he'd put marriages in for all of them, but it just jumps out at you if it's missing.
Good point. And then he can go back and put that source on and then redo the fan. That's great.
And of course, one of the things that you probably notice that when you click on any person's wedge or spot there, you click on their name and the little information card pulls up, and those are hot links. So if I click on Margaret, it will open up in a new tab her profile page. So if you find the ancestors that are missing a marriage, you can go quickly right to that person and then just edit it right there. So that's a handy little navigation feature. And I know that there's some people that just use the fan chart as their navigation aid, just to jump from one place to another.
I can tell you I did for a while when and we should probably point this out, when I was looking at the documentation, and I'll put the link there as well. You had a wonderful WikiTree help you with documentation. And we should probably mention him.
Yeah, Murray was who's a fellow Canadian who just lives a couple hours that way. Or maybe it's that way. I guess depending on which way the anyways. He helped me out with that. And so another one of the things that I've updated just recently is basically how the button bar panel looks. So instead of just the text plus and minus, I've got little visual buttons here. But I've also added an information button that, and so all of my tree apps now, I've got an information button that pops open and gives you a little bit of details about when the app was created and the last update. And this was actually updated this morning. Thank you, Brian, at WikiTree headquarters on the server there. He updated that this morning, fixed a couple things. Jonathan Duke helped me with something. I'm going to show you what he did shortly. And then I have stolen code, borrowed, stolen, used code from Rob Pavey and K Knight. And there's something very cool that K Knight and I are working on that will come in the future, but I don't want to give it away quite yet.
But you can. We won't tell anybody. We promise. We won't tell Saul. But I will mention, you mentioned Jonathan and mentioned Rob, and both of those have been on our bingo recently. Rob was with Sorcerer and Jonathan was with Readability Options. So if you haven't seen those bingos, definitely go back in WikiTree's YouTube and find them.
That's right. Yeah. And of course, I got links to the latest GGG post and free space and the other apps. If you want to find a quick way to find all the apps that I've done, I've put that link there too.
Oh, that's really great. And also the GGG post. That's really handy.
Well, I just think because the most recent one often tells you, a little more detail about what's new and stuff. So I thought that was a handy thing to go back to. So there's a link to the help page there, but you can also get to that same thing just by clicking on that question mark, and then opens up this new help page. So Murray put all this together. I had done a Google Doc, so some of the text came from that, but he has gone way above and beyond. He's added pictures and snapshots, and then I've tweaked some of the stuff, but he's gone through the whole like every little feature, you know, what the button bar panels look like, how to customize the display. And of course, because we're both Canadian, all of the examples we use are good Canadian profiles.
I would have it no other way.
And I steadfastly use the OUR for all of my spellings. So the word color will always have a U in it. So, you know, that's just my little. But all of the details are here. So if you're not sure about how a specific feature works, or if you just want to explore some of the features, I would recommend strongly to check this out because that's great.
I would definitely too, because I can tell you that sometimes there's features that I can't remember how to change because Greg has given us so many options. I love options. I mean, I would rather have so many options than I got to go to the documentation to see where the option is and learn about it than have none. And one of the most popular questions for options popped up.
What was that?
Well, you have the ability to print out the fan chart.
Well, funny you should say that. Now, I haven't tried this since the update this morning because I was busy working on something else. But what Jonathan did for us was the ability to do just that. So let's see how it works, because there was a little bit of a bug and you were getting an extra page. So this is just hot off the press. Let's see if this works. I'm hitting.
See, this is great because you guys are here in bingo. This is literally the first time we're going to show this.
First time. Look at that.
Fingers crossed.
I hit Command P to print, and I get my entire fan chart right there. Do you see that?
I'm not a Mac person. I'm a PC. So is it same Command P for?
Well, it'd be Control P on a
Mac. Okay.
Yeah. So what Jonathan has done, I say we, but it's real. What Jonathan has done is he's added some code in the background so that when you go into print mode, it'll automatically hide everything except the fan chart itself. And the other thing it does is it shifts it's called the viewport. It shifts the view so that the whole fan chart is in the picture. Because if you up until this point, if you hit Control P or Command P to get a printout, it would print just a sliver of the fan chart, because the fan chart itself is pixel wise is more than one page, or most of them are anyways, especially if you go back beyond actually I think if you go anything beyond 3 or 4 generations, it's more than one page. But what Jonathan has done is he's made it shift so that it all prints on one page. Now what
size page?
So that's the very cool thing about this. So right now the last time I was playing with this, I had it on legal size paper and landscape. Now, if I switch that to portrait, it will automatically redo it. So it uses the width of the chart and fits it as wide as it can possibly go on the paper you've got. So if it's in portrait mode, then you're going to be wasting a bunch of page, but that gives you lots of room to add notes above or below if that's what you want to do. If you change this to, say, letter page, then you're going to do that. You can switch that to landscape. So you can make it as big or small on whatever size paper you have access to. If you had, let's see, is A4 the largest or the smallest? I can't remember. Anyways, if you had tabloid size paper that you could print it on that. But the really cool thing, I think, is that you could, on a Mac, creating PDFs is sort of built into the operating system. So almost, I believe every print dialog has this option at the bottom to open it up in preview. So if I click on that, it's automatically opened up in my preview app. And so there it is as a PDF.
Oh, that's so cool.
So basically, you just go to File Print or Command P or Control P, and then choose PDF, save as PDF, or print to PDF, or open up PDF, whatever your option says in your dialog, and then you've got a PDF. And because of the way it's done, in most operating systems and browsers, it's I didn't know I could rotate it. I didn't. That's a neat feature. I was just going to zoom in because look, when I zoom in, I don't know if you can tell on in StreamYard or not. When I zoomed in, I don't want to. For a bit there, it's a little blurry, and then it gets clear. I don't know if you can tell that.
No, it shows crystal clear.
It's just crystal clear all the time. Well, it crisps up really quickly, so I can see how that wouldn't translate really well over the the video stream. But you can print it at, because of the way the PDF is created, you can print it at any resolution. So you could take this PDF, send it off to a printer, and says, well, I want this on a larger sheet of paper. I want these dimensions, and it should print off nice and clear. The pictures themselves, the images, may not, because they don't scale. They don't always scale. But the text and the lines and anything other than the pictures should definitely scale to whatever size you need it to be. So,
and I'm glad you mentioned that too, because I did get this question. I'm glad Shelley asked it about printing, because there's a WikiTree that could not attend today. She is actually wanting to print this out for her nephew as a wedding gift coming up. So nice. That was one of her questions too. So thanks, Shelley, for asking that. And we'll have to remember to go back and tell her, especially to save as PDF.
Yeah.
And I find that a lot in the States, a lot of the print shops, I won't name them, you guys probably know the familiar names, but also a lot of the office supplies will do this. And here's a tip that I used to use as a pro genealogist. I would use one of the office supplies does blueprints, and I would ask them to put it on a blueprint size paper. So if you had a really, 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 really big one, it would come up really cool and really, really interesting. So think about that, but definitely talk to your print supplier, I guess is the best way to say it, see what they could do. Because this can be, if it's PDF, we're seeing it screen wide, but it could be much, much larger, as you said earlier, or you could add an extra. I think, though, Greg, if you add something like, 10 generations, it gets to the point that it's unreadable, even printing, would you say?
Well, it depends again on what size. Let me just go up and see.
And I want to welcome Irish John, Mr. Tyner, who adopted a puppy today.
Oh, nice. Okay. All right.
We tried to tell him to get two.
Okay, let's hit print again. Let's see. There we have all of those. So that does look like it's unreadable, doesn't it?
It does. Unless you're into kind of a different type of print. Like I said, if you get this really large, it's still going to be small print when you get to the further out. But it looks kind of cool how it's all kind of colored, and you can still see the recent ancestors, I guess. So think about it, but definitely we've dropped the link in the chat. Definitely go and look at it if you have any weddings or babies being born or anything like that in your family. This is a really, really cool gift. It's inexpensive too, because Greg gave us this for free. So all you got to do is pay for the printing and the framing. So that's really great.
So I'm changing the name of it up here so that I don't have, and by default, they're just going to be called treeapps.pdf, and you're going to have a whole pile of tree apps 1, tree apps 2. So I would rename them. But again, remember how I said that if you zoom in, it will crisp up. So let's just try that. Let's just try my theory out. Look at that.
Totally. It's very nice. Yeah, it's very crisp and clear.
Crisp and clear, even at the very edge there. So
it's a great job.
If you send it to a print house and you say use that blueprint paper, or even bigger, however big you need it to be, then it should work. Now I did send a print, not from this, but I had a PDF I sent out a few months ago to a local print place, and when I first went to pick it up, there was only a few names that showed up, and there was a bunch of blank space. And they had to do a little tweaking on their end. They had to load, because the default program they were using was, I can't remember what it was. It wasn't actually a PDF reader. It was a different, or the default program they always used didn't read this version of the PDF. So, but they had a way around it, but they just didn't proofread it before they printed it. So, if you find that happens, then
you've given us a great example right here with what you're showing us on the screen. So if everybody knows one side is very colorful and has lots of text. The other side does not. So why is that, Greg?
Well, okay, so part of it, so the left side here is my paternal side, and I have just run out of records because they don't go as far back as the founding of Quebec, which is my French Canadian side on the other side. But these extra colors here that show up, that aren't just the sort of the generation color, those are because those are repeat ancestors, and we're going to talk more about endogamy and pedigree collapse in the second half of the bingo. But this is basically where it comes from. Is I have ancestors who show up more than once in my family tree. So, for example, right here, that bright green and the yellow are from the same couple, Jean Veillet and Catherine Larue. They had a son, Joseph. They also had a this is my PDF. That's not live. Let me move over to here.
And again, these colors are customizable. So if you like to see something like this, I like the green because it stands out and it's not hard on my eyes. But if you like the bright red, you want a red to say, oh, this is where this line has multiple descendants from, then this is all customizable.
Yeah. So yeah, they had two children who eventually had their family trees collapsed, basically, right? So
I love this. Lucas says his would have his tree would look very colorful, and you will notice Lucas is in Kentucky, but look how he spelled colorful.
Oh, very good. Oh, he's appealing to both. He had one OR and he had one OUR.
There you go.
Thank you. There we go.
Equal opportunity.
Yeah. And as you get further and further, like if I started up my grandparents or great grandparents, then this outer ring is almost solid colors.
Yeah.
This is just the beginning of where the pedigree collapse and endogamy shows up in mine, but you get further back and it's all that. Let's see, there's a couple other features that are new. Maybe I'll dial back the generations so it's a little, let's go 7. One of the things I think I just added the last time, but the ability to add badges to ancestors, I think we talked about, but I've added a few new features to that. So here we go. It's in the general tab. And when I click on add badges, then you get this little pop-up here. And for one of the things, I had created a personal category for all of my ancestors who I should be able to find in the 1931 Canadian census that just came out. So if I click on that, as soon as I choose that category, then all of a sudden I see all these badges appearing on all these ancestors. So I actually had a good number. I've got a lot of work to do because I haven't added them yet. I haven't found them all.
But that's great because, like, for us in the States, we have the 1950, and it's been out for a long time now. Exactly. But I could do this. I could use the same concept, and I already know I need to add it to a lot. You make it just kind of be to a point where you can see it. It points it out where you need to add, and you've given it the hyperlink.
I have.
For the person, so that's great.
Yeah. So you can add a bunch of them, and so let's see. There's somewhere from Vaughan Township, so that shows up there. Let me pick Stapleton. Okay, so there's another one over there. Now what I changed is that by default the badge is only, well, first of all I gave you 4, but now I've given you a 5th one, so you can have up to 5 badges now on a profile. And if you don't like them labeled 1 to 5, you could label them A to E, or you could even go nuts and give them custom labels. So for example, if I choose custom labels, say I want my first badge, because it's about the census, I'm just going to put a C I'm going to label that C. And the second badge is about Vaughan Township, so I'm going to label that V. I'm not using the 3rd or 4th, but the last one is in Stapleton, so I'm just going to label that S. So do you see what I'm typing in there? In the custom label, and now I'm going to hit save changes. Whoopsie, I don't want save changes. And then all of a sudden now the badges are labeled C. So the C's are all for the census. The S is Stapleton, the V is Vaughan. Where is that? Over there. So by customizing your badges, then looking at the chart, you can add a lot more meaning to it, and then it's easier to decipher.
Because you've given us also these badges as well. You know, a lot of us use the birth, marriage, death. Some use the so you could do that too. But if you look at it and you add in the colors that you want, and I'll have Greg show you in a minute all the colors too, that you get some different ones. You have some built in and some custom. But anyway, if you add in the colors that you want, you add in the badges that you want, I agree, this really becomes your navigational tool in WikiTree, especially if you're a visual person and you like to see the connections and kind of follow them. It's fabulous. And these are just options. He has built in all these different fun options of colors for us to whatever is more pleasing to you. I can tell you that when I was working with talking with you with the marriage, the one thing that I realized is I was using my big screen to look at the marriage.
Right.
And I was like, this is great, this is fantastic. And then I switched to my cell phone and I was like, okay, great. Well, we need to do something different. But I noticed that the colors look different on my cell versus my big screen.
Isn't that wild, eh?
So sometimes I will change the colors for my cell if I'm, you know, there's nothing worse than waiting for a doctor who is delayed. So I usually bring up the fan chart and start digging through it. And I change the colors, and it's so easy to do because literally you saw how quick he is. He just picked an option.
Yeah, yeah. So I've got a whole pile of options under location. And so this is an example. This is a good example here. So I've got this region of death. So region would be like your province or your state. Okay. So, and especially originally, this was an afterthought. Normally, I originally had just country or town, if you really wanted to get specific. I didn't really think about the middle one, but someone had suggested, well, all of my ancestors have lived in America for hundreds of years. So it would just be one solid color for US, or every different shade under the sun if I went for C. What I really need is to be able to separate my Virginia people from my Arkansas people from, you know, those that made it all the way to California, that sort of thing. So that's why I added region. But when you look at this, so first of all, the nice thing is that a whole chunk of it is that nice lime green, which refers to, now that's interesting, it's Ontario or Quebec. Because there's so many, the shading in between, this is sort of done automatically. And that's a little, I'm going to change to alternating colors here. So the text color changes a bit. So I don't know if you can tell. So Ontario is going to have a dark black text, and the Quebec one has a slightly different shade of green and a slightly lighter gray for its labels. So that's one way to distinguish them. You can, I can see here the distinction. I don't know if you can tell. I don't know if it's coming across well. There's a bit of a distinction here. Anyways,
different shade.
But the thing that I wanted to point out is that so those are labeled Ontario and Quebec, and which is what you'd expect. But then you've got some, like all these ones down in the blue at the bottom, those are just city name or town names. They don't have the region. So that's a big red flag to let you know, well, these ones weren't, you know, the location isn't, you know, WikiTree consistent or whatever. So that's another way that the fan chart can actually point out mistakes or suggestions or things that you could go and fix and tweak. If you've got lots of different entries here when you really should only have 3 or 4, then that's a visual clue to change something.
And I've learned, like, I'm glad you keep mentioning visual, because I grew up like in DOS era where it was like the black screen with the fuzzy white, and then it was like the black screen with the weird green text and things like that. So I'm used to text, but so many people prefer that visual that you give us. Yeah.
The other thing I'll let you know is, now, because we're coloring it by region, these ones along the outside, these again are my repeaters, or no, they're not the repeaters, are they? But they could have been. If I go up to, there we have some repeaters, I think. So if you want to turn off that colorizing option, then what that'll do is that will you won't have two things that are fighting against each other. So the colorize option actually overrules the background coloring.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have repeat ancestors, that trumps whatever coloring
And that's
option.
good to know, because
Yeah.
that's kind of where we're going to be talking with X-Friends. That's kind of where we're headed with this fan chart as well. And, you know, all different types of colors. Again, you guys could spend a lot of time playing
Yeah.
around with it and picking what's easy for your eyes, what looks best on your
Yeah.
screen as well. Why don't
Yeah.
we play the first bingo card, unless you've got
Okay.
something you want to.
Well, I did want to show you another update in the Ancestor Webs app.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And it does kind of relate actually to the endogamy, but we want to spend a little more time with the X chromosome afterwards. So let me just show you a quick thing here.
Okay.
So the Ancestor Web, I think we talked about this briefly the last time, didn't we?
We did.
So my starting person here is Donat Cloutier, who's one of my great grandparents. And I'm just going to go up to 6 generations for him. And by default, I just have the initials of his ancestors showing up, just because it'd be so wide otherwise, right? Now I'm going to add, I now have the option to add a second person to this chart. And that was a feature that I was working on, but I don't think was ready yet.
Yeah, it wasn't ready yet.
Okay, so I'm going to add Marie-Augustine Trudel, who actually is his wife. So these are my one set of my great-grandparents. And at this point, at 6 generations, they have no common ancestors. But if I move it up to one more generation, to the 7th generation, all of a sudden, they have 6 common ancestors. Actually, 3 married couples who they share.
3, now, just one generation. All you did was change one generation.
I just went one more generation back, and they've got 3. And if I go further back, then I think it goes to 26.
Whoa. Okay.
And then this is why I called it Ancestor Webs.
Yeah.
My original, this came from the very, very first app I ever created. And I called it Spider Webs because this is basically it was similar to this, was how the layout looked at. And that's what I thought. It just looks like one giant mess of spider webs. Now, someone thought that was a gross name for an app. So when I switched it to the tree app, I thought, well, maybe I'll just rename it a little, a little less creepy. But this was my idea. I wanted something to show how people were connected to, like, the multiple connections, because I was just investigating my French heritage for the first time, and I came across this all over the place.
I'm going to have to try this out and see what level, what degree mine, because Greg and I were sharing beforehand that I have a common name that has many different family lines, but I want to see where they connect. And this would be really a great tool for that. So keep that in mind. Now, I know that we have a few people that are new to bingo this time, and welcome aboard. And I hope that you have a good time. But I need to let you know that I've dropped the link to the bingo card in the chat. If everybody would go ahead and bring up their bingo card, we'll go ahead and play. Okay. And when we come back, Greg is going to show us X-Friends, and I can't wait for that either.
Yeah. Okay. So the other thing, the common view shows you all of the ancestors that you have in common, but what is cooler is if you want to dive in deeper, if you go to the singles view, then it takes one of those ancestors and gives you the direct path.
It's just that direct path down. That's really great. That's fabulous for research.
Yes. And then look at this. So when you get to someone like here, Jean-Baptiste, he's related to Donat in 2 different ways, related to Marie-Augustine in one way, but you can get to places where they're related to multiple ways to both of them. And then anyways, it's very cool.
But if you look at this screen, it is impossible kind of to manipulate the main profile look on WikiTree to show you this. And you might know that these 2 brothers kind of relate back up. But when you look at this visually, it's clear. You clearly see the path and you understand it. So this is really, really great. And I've dropped the link into this as well. Thanks, Greg. That was really cool.
You're welcome.
Because I'm thinking in my mind how I'm going to use this with my own.
Good. Good. Yeah.
Okay, so let me bring up the bingo card. This is the first one, and it's called Fantastic Fan Bingo. We kind of use that.
Yeah.
Let me get my window up. Okay, guys, and full screen here. Okay, so again, I just want to go over the rules of bingo. If you're new or if you need a refresher, to get bingo, you need to get horizontal, vertical, or diagonal all in a row. The first person that says bingo really loud, feel free. Yell it as much as you want. In the chat is the person who wins the prize, because multiple people could win at the same time, but it's kind of quick draw. Whoever's the fastest typer wins. As we go through the words, Greg's going to give us a really short description of it. But bingo, this part of bingo goes pretty fast. So I just want to warn everybody. You click on the word to select it, kind of splotch it like the dabber. If you did accidentally click on a word, just click it again and the little splotch or dabber go away. I believe this one has a free square. I believe. So if it does, go ahead and click it now. And it should be Greg's fan chart, a little fan chart. And actually, it was from the documentation page for Murray. So that's even better. And
excellent.
if you have won bingo prize in the last 6 months, you are not eligible to win until your 6 months date has passed. And a few of you became eligible this week too. So keep that in mind. Oh, one last thing. Sorry. I keep forgetting this part.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody says bingo, keep playing, that means that they're having fun. They've enjoyed playing along with us, but they have won in the past 6 months and they're not eligible. They still want to have fun and play bingo. So do not close your card until we know we've got a bingo. Okay, Greg, you ready for a fast round of bingo?
Okay.
Fan chart. I think we might know what that one is.
Just what I showed. Just what I showed over there. Yeah.
I love this, Jen. This
just
really
4 more to go.
Way to go, Jen. For the laugh. I love that. Nice. And I agree with Pam here. Good luck, everyone. Okay, so fan chart. If you have that, go ahead and click it. Okay. Places.
One of the options you have is to whether you show places or not, and you can customize which of those places you want to show. Like if you want to just show the birthplace, go for it. It's all in the settings.
It's great. There's so many options. And I will say, if you're doing one place studies, this is a fabulous tool to use as well. Yes. Or if you're researching names in a particular place. So it's kind of one name study and one place study in just a particular location. That's a great way to do it.
Yeah. And if you've got those categories, then you can add those badges for those.
That would be fabulous.
Lifespan. One of the options under dates is to choose lifespan, which just gives the birth and the death year and not the specific dates. So if you're short on space, that's one way to get, you got the information there, but it saves you a couple lines. So
if you don't need to know the month or the day, then you can just pick this option. That's great.
Yeah. Fay Ray is one of our Canadian profiles that we used in our help doc.
Rhymes.
The one, yeah, rhymes, yeah. Famous from King Kong, but Canadian. And badges. I just showed you the new feature about adding badges. So anything that is a sticker or a category that you've added to a profile will become an option in the badges dropdown.
I'm so glad you said that. So let's repeat that again. A sticker or a category could be a badge. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's how I came up with the list, because so it actually reads the biography of your ancestors and picks out all the categories or stickers that are there, and then uses that to populate the drop-down list of possible badges that you could add. So if you haven't added any categories to your ancestors, then it's going to be a very short list.
Yeah, you got some homework.
Alternating colors is one of the options I showed you there for the text. So if you've got if you've got your legend is really big, by alternating the colors of the text, then even if the background colors are similar, then the text colors can change, and it gives a little bit of extra distinction between the options.
Let me double check. It's not trivia, but I worried. None of the words are on her card, on Carol's card. And it might be why, if somebody could help us out and make sure, let us know that you've gotten at least a word. Oh, there we go. For a 6. I will tell you probably why there are no words on your card just yet. I usually ask the guests to give me 25 words, and Greg gave me a little bit more. So usually my list kind of went long on this, so we might have got some. So it makes it more entertaining, a little bit more challenging to get So yeah, definitely. I like Jen's pull up a new card. We'll give everybody a quick second if need to, but some have some. Oh, and
yeah.
He's like, yeah. That's funny.
Thanks, Jen.
And I'll give everybody a chance to try and refresh or pull up a new card. But Joku she's on her way. And
she better not refresh or else.
Yeah, this is a good incentive for using cats and stickers, because if this becomes your new way of looking at WikiTree, so when you open up WikiTree in the morning and you decide you're going to start working on your tree, and the fan chart is your navigation instead of just the profile view, cats and stickers will help. And good, Lisa has had 2 so far.
Oh, good.
Okay, 3. Okay, so I think we're good.
We're okay.
I think we're good. Okay. Well, this is interesting. Yeah.
So we
bring DNA to the fan chart.
Yeah, but the last time we were here, I think we did cover how in the highlight tab, and we didn't even look at the highlight tab this time, but you can highlight in bright yellow ancestors that qualify, and so there's anyone who has a mitochondrial, or you've inherited mitochondrial DNA from them, so that'd be your maternal line, will all get highlighted in yellow. And you can also highlight those who are DNA confirmed by DNA. And I also added a few other things, including categories and stickers. So you could actually highlight in bright yellow anyone who's part of a category. If the badge isn't enough of a hint for you and you want something really to pop,
then you can do that.
Yeah.
So a category could be, let me go ahead and use again, like the one place study, or the one name study, or a particular, maybe you have a military line or something like that. I'm trying to think kind of out of the box here. Or a city, you maybe don't have a one place study, but you just want to capture those from the same city, I guess, if you use that category. Yeah. Or, as you mentioned, which I really like, the same census.
Yeah. Yeah, that really, Catherine Hogan also, she liked that idea. So I'm glad that helped out my fellow Canadian there. That idea. Terry Fox, another one of our great Canadian profiles.
And Carol, are you getting some words? I hope those that were not getting words, I hope you get words.
No, that's too bad.
But I like your statement. It's true. There's ways to look at it. Oh, yeah. Not a 1.
Not a 1.
I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed that they come up real quick, because I have seen some people say they have done, and then all of a sudden they win, or the next bingo game. Okay, and why DNA? It kind of works the same, except it's your paternal line.
Yeah, it's your paternal. Yeah, same idea. Line settings. So you can one of the options in the Ancestor Web's settings panel, and we didn't even look through all of those options, but is the lines that connect parent and child. There's 3 different settings in terms of thicknesses. And I find that the busier it gets, the thicker I want the line to go, so that I can see that distinction, because you're usually zooming out at that point.
That's a really interesting thing too. So keep that in mind, probably if you decide to print, maybe with less ancestors, I would say, to make it a little bit more larger if you have like 3 ancestor lines, if you're giving it as a gift.
Yeah. So the print option that I showed you for the fan chart, that was the first one that Jonathan has added that feature to. But now that we know it works, we will go back and we'll add that option to all of the tree, or all of my tree apps anyways. And I suspect
that's great.
We'll add that. But the Ancestor web doesn't have that quite yet. But that Ancestor webs, I can see that being a cool thing for a family reunion.
Possibly. Yeah, it really could. It really would be, because it's unique as well. And tracing and looking at it, we're used to like a big cartoon tree with little pictures on the branches. Yeah. This is just a different way, more contemporary way for some as well. Okay, so names.
Names. There's a million different ways of customizing names: first name, last name, middle name, suffixes, prefixes, whatever you want. Lots of options there.
And this is fabulous.
Yeah.
This could be a badge, right?
This could be a badge. Could this be? I don't have this as a badge, but I could. It's under the highlight right now. Yeah. So you can highlight all of your ancestors that are DNA confirmed, which will be bright yellow.
That is fabulous that you could do that.
But yeah. So in the highlight section, I don't have it as an option for badges, but it could be added, because I mean,
feature request.
The feature request. Okay. Someone email it to me. Write it down.
Because if I like my colors, like, certain way, sort of like the box of Crayolas, and then I could have the badge.
Yeah. So the distinction between the highlighting turns some of your cells bright yellow, so it's really in your face. And if that's what you need, or if that's what you really want to show off, then that's the thing for you. But badges are just a little bit more subtle, right? So
yeah. Because this is one area that I really need to work on with WikiTree on my own tree. I have got just, a first, second generation. I really need to go back further.
The palette. So when you're choosing the colors, the background colors, there's lots of different palettes to choose from. The exception is if you're choosing a location, like country, region, or whatever, those palettes are just generated automatically. And there's an algorithm just basically goes from shades of red to shades of blue at the bottom. And so depending on how many, it just gives you a number in that range. But any of the other ones, like by grandparents or by age, those ones you can choose shades of pastel shades of red or green or blue. So the unique web in the Ancestor Webs app, you can choose to show just your unique ancestors. So instead of your whole pedigree, only those that are unique. So if there's repeats, then they get connected. So it's a little more compact. You see everyone, but if they're repeated, they only show up once, and you have lines connecting them.
And
it's
fantastic. It really is, because I will tell everybody, seriously, for decades, probably, I was going to say years, decades, for a lot of us that are pro gens, we would use the fan and give it to clients as well and things like that. But we'd also use it for our own trees, just kind of looking. And it was a basic, this is what you get. You don't get to customize it. You don't get the badges, the colors, the marriage dates, things like that. You can even take the photos on or off. You can do a lot of different things with it. So Greg has really made this fan a fantastic one. And we have a bingo. Jen, this is fabulous. Jen has been with us for a while, and I'm so happy that you won bingo. Let me go ahead and tell you what you need to do to get your prize. So you're going to email Eowyn at wikitree.com and tell her that you won the bingo with Greg. She will send you a link with everything that you could get. It's a $30 value, but it's at the WikiTree store. So it's a WikiTree branded product. And again, I will show everybody the bingo mug. People are posting this on social media when they get it.
They're really? That's excellent.
On Instagram and WikiTree's Facebook, and when they get it, and where they're sitting when they're drinking. Somebody was sitting outside in a nice, garden area. So it was like really cool to see that. But go ahead and email Eowyn, and she will get you all set up. Congratulations, Jen. That's fun. And I will say, too, if you did not win, but you're curious what items are in the store, I will post the store link, because, as you know, this is WikiTree's 15th anniversary. And WikiTree has just added the limited edition 15th anniversary t-shirts.
Very nice.
in the store. Okay, Greg. So you're going to talk just about something that I am really, really excited about. And just to give everybody a short background, I work with One Place Studies, and we featured one time, and a gentleman reached out to me. He wasn't quite complete with his One Place Study. He goes, "Why are you featuring this? I'm working on endogamy with this." And I'm like, "You're working on endogamy? Oh, cool. Where are you working on endogamy at?" Because in Appalachia, we work on endogamy day in, day out. And he said, "Italy." And I was like, "Oh, tell me more." And he's like, "Greg." And then he's like, "France." And I was like, "Which one?" And so, Greg, it was a long conversation back and back of confusion of where the endogamy was coming from. But he said, "Go to Greg. He has this app called X Friends, and it will solve mysteries for you." So, no pressure. Take
No
it from
pressure.
here.
Yeah. So you're talking about James Smith, who was involved with the Corato project. Corato is a little town in Italy, and he was investigating. He lives in France, and some people came to him, and he was helping them with their genealogy, and they had ancestors who came from this little town in Italy, and as is common. Once one person goes to a place and finds, there's some work there, whatever, a bunch do. So there was a number of people from Corato who moved to Italy, but they were trying to trace that sort of migration pattern. And the latest version of the project is expanding, and now he's trying to trace the pattern from Italy to France, and then out to the New World as well, basically. So, but because there's a lot of endogamy and a lot of pedigree collapse, there's a lot of common ancestors when you go further back, that makes the DNA work very difficult. So his theory was that using the X chromosome, because the X chromosome is a little more specific about how things get passed on from one generation to another, that if we could follow that, we could actually solve some mysteries, and it would be able to find some distant matches that you wouldn't be able to find otherwise. And he consulted Peter Roberts, who's one of our biggest WikiTree DNA experts, and then they talked to me about, could an app sort of do this for us or help us out with that? And that's where the idea came from. And so I created an app called the X Friends app, and the app that I just released last week and was actually featured in the newsletter this coming week was the X Family Tree app. So I'm going to share that now, because even though chronologically it was the most recent one, not the original one, but it's the easier one to figure out what I'm talking about, and then we'll go to the X Friends app, which has more features to it. So what this one does, and I've loaded up with my family tree, my X chromosome tree, and I've just done 5 generations to start with, which is the default. And you can see that, so at 5 generations, I should have, so at one generation, I have 2 parents, then 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, and 16 possible great-great-grandparents. But of those 16 great-great-grandparents, only 5 of those people actually contributed or could have contributed to my X chromosome, because of the way the X chromosome gets passed on. And the way it gets passed on is that, let me just make that a little bit bigger there. So men have an X and a Y, and so they pass on their Y to their sons and the X to their children, to their daughters, to the daughters. So Joseph Desrey passes on his X to his daughter. Now, women have 2 X's, and they pass on their X to both of their children, both types of children, boys and girls. But because of that, the men cannot pass on an X to their sons. You have this lopsided effect. So some people receive 2 X chromosomes. Women receive 2 X chromosomes from both parents. Men only receive an X chromosome from their mother. And because of that lopsided effect, some ancestors are completely ruled out. So if you share a sizable chunk of your X chromosome with someone else, then they could only be from some of your ancestors. So you can just you can rule out a good chunk of your ancestors if you're trying to find that common relationship.
It just cut them out of the tree, mental tree
just
for
ignore them
DNA.
completely. Yeah.
For you.
If you are sharing on the X chromosome, then that connection has to be through a specific subset of your ancestors. Now, if you're related to someone in two different ways, you could have one that's related through the X chromosome through one set of ancestors, and you could potentially be related to another set of grandparents who aren't X chromosome ones, but if you're related multiple ways. But if you're only related one possible way, then that gives you a shortcut in terms of which ones you need to focus on. And so when you open up this app, what it does is it's in probability mode. So this is my probability tree. So one of the things that happens when men pass on their X chromosome to their daughters, they just give a complete copy. So Joseph starts off with a solid green one. He gives that whole solid green one to his daughter, Marie-Eugène Alphonsine. Now, when women pass on their X chromosome to their children, they get a combination because they have two X chromosomes to choose from, and they give some combination. Now, it could be it could be the top one that goes, could be the bottom one, but most often, about 87% of the time, it's a combination of the two. So for the probability chart, what I wanted this to do, and this is what I did in the X-Friends app, is I wanted to have a visual that showed me visually which ancestors probably gave you more of their X chromosome than others. So if you can see here, there's more green than there is this light pink at the end. So because of the way it works down, I'm more likely to have some of Joseph's X chromosome than Marie-Célinaire, right? Just because of the way it works. And if you go higher generations, that distinction becomes even more obvious. Like, so you can see that it's more likely that I will get this light tan, which would be Joseph Marin, than someone at the end, just because of the way it works. So that's how the probability works. Now, that is assuming that at every step of the way, the mothers give exactly half of each of their chromosomes to their children. Mm-hmm. But what do we know most about DNA and how it's distributed, Sandy?
Well, I was gonna say you can't always but then I would be lying. So I'll let you finish.
Well, what you were going to say, you can't always predict, right?
No, you can't. You just can't predict.
It's random. That's the thing.
That's what I was going to say. It's random. I know on some sides of the family that you're going to get, like you said, the males and the X and the females and the X. Those are pretty.
Yeah,
those are pretty solid. How it gets to you, but it's random.
It's totally random. Well, the one thing that's constant about DNA is that it's random, that it's not constant. So in theory, this is how it would work. Look, but in practice, it's almost never.
Yeah.
And the phrase I came up with that I just kind of like is even how though mathematically, aesthetically pleasing, this exact result is highly unlikely.
Visual. Again, you're giving us something visual, because if you're looking at this text and you're trying to read the text and figure out from Greg all the way up to the top, you're going to hurt your eyes. You're going to get a little bit of headache. You'll figure it out. No doubt. You'll figure it out. But Greg made this easy by giving us visual.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, he's showing us the probability.
It's all probability now, but I wasn't happy with just stopping there. I decided, well, let's make it a little more fun. So I put it in, I created a random simulation mode. And what this does, so now if you zoom in, let's zoom in here on Marie-Philomène. You see these little drop down, these little red spots in between? Those are the recombination points. So remember how I said that you can, a woman can pass on all of her top chromosome or all of her bottom chromosome. I mean, when I say top and bottom, one's from her father and one's from her mother. But you never actually know which ones. But just
Yeah.
in terms of these charts, I'm just going to say the top and the bottom one, just so that we have a visual. So one of these will be from her mother and one of these will be from her father. It's not sure which, right? But these red marks here is where it flips. So it starts off, the first part is actually, it looks like there's a little red line at the very beginning. So the first portion that Marie passes on to Joseph is this light green. And then it flips over and you get the solid green. And then the last little portion, it flips back to the light green. Maybe that'll be a little more obvious if we switch to, is there one that's easier to, well, so in this random simulation, it just randomly assigns recombination points to them. And so what you get is a much more random combination. And see, look here, with this random simulation, I've got a whole pile of this brown tan person, which is a lot more than theoretically I should, you would think. But in this case, who was the big winner? Who's tan? Oh, Epiphan Gagnon is the big winner here. Because so when those two were mixed, okay, so Epiphan gives all of his to his daughter, and then a good chunk of that came to Marie Augustine, and another chunk there. And then look what happened here. Marie Augustine, instead of giving a combination of the two from Marie Augustine, she chose to give all of her top chromosome to Germaine, my grandmother, in this simulation, right? And that's why all of a sudden, and then did the same thing happen? Not quite the same thing happened, but most of it came back. And look at where the recombination points are for her. Most of that green got cut out. So that's why, by just random happenstance, I get a whole pile of the brown chromosome, which you wouldn't normally think by, with the probability.
No, you wouldn't, because if you're looking at the visual, as Greg mentioned, that she has a lot of green, but then when it came down, there is not as much green. As we said, it's luck of the draw, is random.
It's luck of the draw. So yeah, and I've added a randomize button, so you hit randomize the right way. It'll just re-randomize those points, and you can see now all of a sudden this one I have no brown at all. He's been completely cut out from being the dominant one. Now, so this gives you an idea of how random this whole thing is. And look at this one. Now, all of a sudden, I've got only these two ancestors. I mean, there's the only way to really know how, where you get your X chromosome from is to compare DNA tests. And you have to go to a site that shows you the X chromosome. So GEDmatch does that. Let me think. The 23andMe, I think, shows the X chromosome, and Family Tree DNA, I think, shows the X chromosome. Ancestry does not. It doesn't have a chromosome browser at all. And the MyHeritage browser does not show the X chromosome, sadly. But if you upload your data, if you transfer your data to GEDmatch,
it's the easiest, I think.
Which is the easiest. Then because the X chromosome data is there in their data file, but it's just not shown in their inherent browsers. So if you transfer it to GEDmatch, then you can see it. And then you can compare your cousins to you, and you can see where you overlap and stuff.
And then explain when we do that, and with your system here, so the endogamy, how did the gentleman that had the one place study in Italy use it?
So I'm glad you asked that, because that leads into, so this was sort of the app that I wanted to build for the tree apps, because I think it's a cool visual, and it shows you basically how the X chromosome works. But if you want to go deeper and you want to actually explore those cousins, then you want to use the X Friends app. And I actually have a link to that at the bottom of this tree app. So if you're in the tree apps, you just click on the X Friends app, and it'll load it up for you. And if you have a GEDCOM file, you can actually load that GEDCOM file from your desktop, and it'll load it and process this and create the same display I did. Or you can put your own name in here. your own WikiTree ID and load it up. Now, it takes a little bit of time to do this because there's a lot of processing going on. So the first thing it does is build that same display that I had, and then it's processing. Right now, it's found all the ancestors at the top level.
Mm-hmm.
But what this does that the other one doesn't do, this one goes further. And now that it's found those ancestors, it's looking through and finding all of the descendants of those ancestors. And those descendants are going to be your cousins. And those are the people who could have shared some of the same X chromosomes. So those are the people you want to track down and compare your DNA with their DNA and see if you have overlapping segments on the X chromosome. Now, what I should say, if you when you're comparing X chromosome DNA, the recommendation is that it has to be a sizable chunk. Just like with regular autosomal DNA, anything less than 7 centimorgans is very suspect, and some people prefer 9 centimorgans as the cutoff.
Yeah, I do.
And if you have endogamy, then you want at least the 9, and maybe even a little bit higher. For X chromosomes, I've heard the range is between 12 and 20 to be sort of the reliable starting point. So if you have a smaller bit of X chromosome, the probability that it's just a random match and not an actual match because of your lineage, it gets higher. So I wouldn't investigate strongly X chromosome matches that are anything less than 12 centimorgans, and 20 centimorgans or more is better.
Yeah, I was going to say 12. You're being generous, and that's in my own tree, which I do have endogamy. I'm not going to spend too much hours on that. I'm going to go up higher to 20, 25. Just at first, I can always dig their ancestors if I need to at that point, but I'm not going to waste a lot of time under the 20 range. But in a lot of you might say, well, I don't think I have endogamy in my tree. I don't think I have the double cousins marrying or anything like that. Right. I don't think I have family intermixing, things like that. Sometimes you never know. And I will tell you that if your ancestors come from an area that was sparse, didn't have a lot of population, the chances are you're going to use this app and be surprised in a good way, not a bad way. It's not a shocking thing, but remember that we're talking about ancestors a lot in the 1800s, and the population then of the towns and cities where they came from, islands, are much different than what they are now. So now the chances, and Greg and I were laughing, would you date your sixth cousin? The chances now of you running into your sixth cousin is probably rare, but back then it was probably more common. Exactly. I'll leave it up to you guys if you want to date your sixth cousin, but I guarantee you that you probably don't know who your sixth cousin is. That's at this point. You will if you use the X chromosome.
That's right.
You'll find out. So keep that in mind as well. That you might think that this app might not be for you, but you might be surprised. You will find that if you have pockets of ancestors that had farms, and the farms are large, the cities are can only hold so much. Back in 1800s, the population was different.
So one of the things that on this homepage that's not on the other app is that if you want to look at specifics. So here's one of my great grandparents. If I click on her name and highlight her name, then you can see all of the ancestors at the top that she got her DNA from. And so hence this is where I got the DNA from her, basically. And you can see it's highlighted this sort of first segment there. Again, this is a probability chromosome. This isn't sort of like the random one, because again, I can't predict what your actual chromosome, where the mix and match is, but this is all based on probability. Now, the real meat of this app is in these other two tabs. So, but first, before I go into that, I'm going to go back to the home, and I have some privacy settings on this. Just for this case, if I'm presenting and I don't want to show off people's names, there are different ways you can just privatize it. And I'll just go down to the very bottom one. So now if someone's living, it'll just say the word living. So you can look at the summary by ancestors. So there were, if you go back to here, how many ancestors did I have? I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ancestors. So I can look at each individual ancestor. There's a little note there. I'm going to hide that for now. So the first one was Marie-Philomène Morin. And so it's listing all of the people, all of the potential cousins that I have that could have inherited from her. And I always say potential inheritors because remember that random stuff. And even though they're at the top of the chart, they could get axed off by some poor, an unlucky recombination lower on down, right? But if they did, this is how much you would expect them to have, okay? And so you can see that some of them are larger than others, and some of them are larger than others because they are actually from a previous generation, so they don't have as many recombinations. So if you're looking at this, and if you're interested specifically in the pedigree or the ancestry based on Marie-Philomène, then you're going to want to track down cousins that have the larger bar because the chances are larger that they will have inherited, you don't rule out the other ones because anyone could have received some, but the ones that are larger are more likely to have. So that
it is a good place to spend your time as opposed to starting at the top and going through all of them. It's just a good starting point.
That's right. Then the opposite, attacking it from the opposite direction is if you want to zoom in on a specific cousin. So now and you can limit your matches. So if I'm only showing the living ones, because I privatize it, that's a very boring looking list. living. But I do have an option for they're living now, or they passed away sometime after DNA testing became available. So I use
that's an interesting thing to note. Okay.
So I use 2005 as the cutoff. Now that's really early days of DNA testing. And there might have been some DNA tests that happened a little bit before, for some really hardcore people.
At courthouses, yeah. No.
Yeah, that's great. But basically, if they were alive when DNA testing was available, it's possible that they did get a DNA test and you could access that, or someone else will have access to it. So then you look at the profile and you can see the whole combination of all of their ancestors.
This is great. This is really great.
Yeah. So then this is the one. So I show up here somewhere. There's me actually right there. And one of the other things, if they have a GEDmatch, if they have filled out the DNA information and have put in their GEDmatch login, then you can use this now to actually pull up the compare.
That's great. A hyperlink just to go straight to it.
That's right. Unfortunately, I'm the only one of my ex-friends' cousins who has that, so I can't actually show that feature, but it will work. And if you were Peter Roberts, he would have a whole pile of these on his. I can assure you. But then that's another way. Personally, I think this view is the coolest because you can sort of see the mixing and the matching. And
I do too, and I like the different colors because I can visually just see names I might recognize, names I might not recognize by the colors as well, and I can say, okay, so let me follow this red. The jewels, and go from there. Yeah.
And I'm consistent. I use the same. So Jules Dumont will be read on every one of these screens.
And that's what I was going to ask you next. That's great. So you literally just go and try the red.
So if you find a color, a person you like from screen 1, you can follow up on him in all the subsequent screens. So that's basically the tool. And the hope for the project was that now that we have this, we can have a whole list of cousins that we can target. And the other thing to keep in mind is, and the reason why I did have these options to show living or deceased, or even all ex-friends, living and dead, which will go back to the, basically the children of the ancestors. So we're talking way back in time. Is, often in WikiTree, we don't add living people. And so WikiTree may only have someone's grandparents, but if you know those if you find a profile, you find someone that says, well, this one looks like, let me just jump down here. Okay, so this person here, has a lot of blue, and that's the person I want to investigate, but they don't have any children on WikiTree, but at least that gives me a starting point, and then I can contact them and see, and find out if they have children or grandchildren, and did they do any DNA testing. And so and you can go from there. So that's the tool, and that's how we hope to use it, and hopefully it'll help solve some of those problems.
I think it's really interesting that you brought these two tools together. And I did drop the link to the bingo card. So if you want to bring it up, we'll do another one more speed round of bingo. But I think it's really great you brought these two tools together, because in my mind, I picture them working perfectly for my family line. Trying to, like I was telling Greg, I have the last name Bennett, but I'm thinking that if you had Smiths and Jones and stuff, sometimes, looking at it on text is hard. But if you look at it on the fan, it's easy. And then if you see pockets, maybe where you might be able to add somebody, come over to the X friends and see if you're missing cousins and missing lines that might be able to pick up. Because if you're looking in one particular area and there are 20 or 50 lines of Smiths, this X friends kind of helps narrow down which Smith line you're looking at. So I can see both of these just working wonderfully together. This is really, really cool. Okay. Cool. So you guys ready for another fast round of bingo? I dropped the card. I'm going to take someone's suggestion. I think it was Jen. It might have been Liza's, that once you bring the card up, maybe refresh or do some magic like that. And let's send Carol some luck that she can get a word other than the word free in the middle space. So if you guys are ready, I'll just remind you again real quick. So for bingo, horizontal, vertical, diagonal, I don't think there's a free space. Yeah, I know. I don't think there's a free space because there are so many good words for this one. So I didn't want to waste anything. So the first person who gets bingo, it gets the vertical, horizontal, diagonal, and yells bingo in the chat. If it's been 6 months, you were not eligible to win until after 6 months has passed. And make sure you don't close your card down until we're confirmed that we have a bingo. Oh, there is a free space. What do you know? Okay. Thank you, guys. Okay, let's go. This is going to be a fast one, guys. Cousins.
Cousins. Oh, it's all about the cousins.
And again, this particular bingo is talking about the X Friends app that we just saw.
That's
so 50%.
Right. Yeah. So 50% is the recombination that I use in the probability mode for the probability trees, that assuming that a mother will pass on 50% of her chromosome from her father and 50% of her chromosome from her mother to her children. I know that doesn't always happen.
But for probability?
For probability, what else are you going to, you have to guess. You have to use something. So it's the most likely, even if it's not always going to be accurate. Fractions.
And we know you've got to have math in here.
Oh, so there's fractions all over the place. Lots of having the having and all that sort of stuff. So lots of fractions happening. And I noticed that Karen had asked about numbers. And if you're on the root individual page of the X Friends, it actually shows you the numbers. In one of the things, it gives you the exact percentage, 6.25%, for example, for your third great grandmother. Last time in birth, of course, is important, especially when you're looking through the female ancestors, because you want to find that you don't want to lose them into their married names. If you're doing the following the ancestry, I think it's the easiest thing. So GEDCOM is a file format that genealogy programs use to share family trees with. So if you have your family tree in Family Tree Maker or Roots Magic or something like that, you can export that and you can use that in the X Friends app to bring it up. So in the scenario that I had given before, where WikiTree may stop at your grandparents and not go down into the living individuals, your GEDCOM could have those. So you could use that to view living people, living cousins.
I thought that was an amazing option too. I will point out that I
did it first
usually, but I was like, if I needed to, that would be the first place I'm going with mine.
Yeah. Places again. I had in the listing, it actually gives their birthplace. I don't put the death place, but I put the birthplace for all the ancestors, because that's a good hint of where, when you're talking about migration and whatnot, especially when you go back in time.
I gotta agree with Carol. There's a little JCOMs can be
It's a
really
pain
tough
to
from
clean
the
up. That's
1600s,
true.
and that's kind of why I didn't. But also, I like to explore. Okay, so Carol, I do have another question for you though, and everybody else. Are you finding the
I'm
words
seeing
on
any.
the bingo card? GEDmatch is probably the easiest thing to do to download your DNA and then upload it to GMAT. For the most part, the
Yeah.
basic tools are free. You can pay a little bit extra, but it is probably the easiest to use.
Mhm.
And it accepts from, I believe,
Oh,
correct me if I'm wrong, it accepts from almost every place that tests.
yeah, I believe
It's
it
kind of like
does.
one-stop shopping. Okay, so somebody has no words, but Joku has 2 words. So
Okay.
so we're doing good.
We're doing okay here.
Recombinate.
Recombination. That's the process where a mother who has 2 X chromosomes gives some combination of that to their children. Could be all of the first one, all the second one, or more likely 87% of the time about a combination. And that it could have, yeah.
4 words.
I've got 4. Ooh, Katie. Katie's coming. This segment has been featured, sponsored by the X chromosome. It's like Sesame Street, the number or the letter X. G2G posts. Yes, in all my apps now, I have a link to the most recent G2G posts so that you can read up more about that.
And we posted earlier today too the one with the fan updates.
That's right. Yeah, and let me just double check that I put that link in the about for
the Y-DNA. That's going to be the male line that's coming down. The WikiTree ID.
Yeah, that's your name with a dash and a number afterwards. So you'll see it at the top of when you're at your home profile, you'll see it it's the end of the URL part there. And you use that to get into any of these tree apps. Okay,
but Carol, I'm glad that you got it.
Yeah,
more than a free space. Yeah, more than a free space.
That's good.
But again, these are a little different because we added a couple more words, meaning me.
Well, you said 50. I didn't realize you meant 25 and 25, so I gave 50 and 50.
So Greg really did his homework and stayed up burning the midnight oil last night with it. So.
Yes. James Smith. So he's the originator of the Corrado project and the brains behind, or the instigator. Maybe instigator is a better word. The instigator behind the X Friends project and app.
And he's who brought it to my attention. I did not know. And I want to point out that every once in a while that you might just want to head up to the top of WikiTree's menu where it says find. And then if you click on that, the very first option is apps. And then you can see a bunch of apps too that you maybe have not known. We did have Jamie on, the project leader with apps last bingo, and it did like a super speedy view of apps, but definitely check it out. There's a lot. And thank you, James, for bringing X Friends to my attention. DNA testing. So to get the X Friends to work, you really want to have DNA testing.
Yeah. And you can use this to help to target, you should know who to target next, James. Hey, cousin.
And make sure that you add it as well, the information into WikiTree, so it kind of triggers it.
That's right. And those who do transfer their data or upload their data to GEDmatch, make sure you add that information to WikiTree as well, because then that gives you the easy way to compare from cousins on WikiTree. So the central person in any tree app is the person at the bottom, usually, that the ancestors are built from. Probability, lots of probability in the X Friends app, and I use the 50% as the core probability, but the randomizer goes anywhere from 5% to 95% when it recombines.
And we have a bingo, but we're going to keep playing because Mary has recently won.
Ah, okay. Now the centromere, when there's 2 chromosomes, like when women have have the 2 X chromosomes, when they recombine, the centromere is that place in the middle. And often, if you see an X chromosome or you see a chromosome diagram, you'll see the place in the middle, sort of like I don't know what you call it, like yarn. you know, a little knot of yarn. It kind of looks like this, right? You know, and it's the place in the middle where they cross over or they attach to each other.
Kind of knitted together, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
Thank you for the yarn analogy. That helped. The Italy project. This is kind of where X-Friends started, right?
That's right. Yeah, because Corrado, of course, is in Italy. And so James recruited the people from the Italy project, so Chris Fariolo and all his friends. And the last couple Connectathons, they actually helped James out by adding more people to WikiTree.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah. So the X-Friends app is a standalone app. It's not part of the tree apps because and my rationale for that is that the X family tree is a tree app because it basically does show a family tree. And now it's a funky one. It's not a standard one, but it is still a family tree. But the X-Friend apps is much more specific in its use, and it's not really a family tree. It's got broader uses and more of a utility app. So
I like to think of it more research. And so keep in mind that we're saying that this is not included. X-Friends is not included in the WikiTree browser extension. It's not a sourcer it is kind of like a sourcer where it's outside of the WikiTree.
Yeah. But I have the link is in it from the X family trees. So you can go straight from the tree apps, X family tree, and then into it. So you don't have to hunt and peck to find the link to it.
And those tree apps, it's a tab on profiles. Exactly. And I guarantee you everybody sees it and doesn't know it's there.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things you go from
hiding in plain sight,
edit,
right?
To changes to probably, and you miss right over it. Okay, there we go. And we have a bingo. Yay! That was great.
A Canadian. Yay!
Oh, wow, that's really cool. Congratulations, Catherine. So let me tell you how you're going to get your prize. You're going to email Eowyn, and she's going to send you a link with the store and tell you the details. I believe it's still up to a $30 prize limit, and it's WikiTree branded. Just want to mention again, the bingo mug is the most popular item. If you get it, post up on WikiTree's Facebook. But also, WikiTree Day is coming up in November, so the 15th anniversary limited edition shirts are now loaded into the store as well, which is really cool, because when WikiTree Day comes up in November, you could be watching and wearing your shirt at the same time. And I know that Greg has his Enjoy Genealogy shirt. That's also an option at the store for bingo winners.
Nice bright orange.
Yep. So congratulations, Catherine. That's awesome.
Nice.
Well, Greg, you're going to have to come back with some more apps for us, because these are so handy, and I can't wait to try out the X-Friends now that I know how to use it and what to do with it. So thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Anytime. I always enjoy this.
And I want to say, too, that if you have any questions about what we went over, we do have limited time. So if you have any questions, reach out to Greg.
Yeah.
Greg can help you out. And if you are watching this live, thank you, guys. If you're watching us after the fact, thank you for coming back and joining us and taking your time and watching us. For those of you that are watching us on our typical Friday, don't forget, you will see Greg on Saturday morning during the Saturday Roundup with Betsy Co. and our favorite Appalachian, Mags, as well. So definitely check out the Saturday Roundup. We will be back one more time tonight for those watching live with the Acadians, and then we'll be back after next week, because next week is Friday date night. So thanks, everybody, for joining us. We appreciate you being here. Thanks, Greg.
See ya. Thanks.